Alright guys, so it's 2025 and I set a goal to myself to read 25 books. So far I'm 12 books in. It is August the 21st, so I am falling a bit far behind. I have read some bigger books, so there's been a few thick ones. But overall, I am running a bit behind. A bit of a backstory. I am very, very bad at finishing books. I have the tendency to read a little bit of this one, then I get intrigued in another one. I'll jump over to that one, I'll read a few pages of that one, I won't be gripped. Then I change to another one, so forth, so on and so forth. Which is obviously not good. Sometimes I would get more interested in the idea of a book or just an idea of a book in a short time span, and I wouldn't invest the time it takes to read the full book. So it would actually be quite a rare instance for me to complete a whole book. Sad to say. I used to say to people, I read a lot, but I don't finish many books. But this year, 2025, I set the goal. That's made all the difference for me. I think I put the goal at something like 50, something very, very out of reach. I ended up scaling it back a little bit to 30. Now I'm at 25. I need to read 3 books a month for the next 4 months. September, October, November, December. Technically 3.25. But anyway, I've read 12 books so far, and I'm going to tell you the ranking of these books. Now, I haven't read many books in completion for a decent amount of time, so these have been selected in a way where they're quite high quality books, I must say. So this could look like a top 10 best books of all time list, because I was mainly trying to go for books that I would enjoy. I'm new into reading properly, so I'm just whatever that I'm recommended, whatever I feel interested in, whatever I've heard good things about, what's highly rated, I will read those. And generally, if things are highly rated, for instance, there's some books in here that a lot of people say it's their best book of all time, and that's why I read it. I tend to watch lists like this. This is my top 10 of the year, 2025. I tend to watch lists like this. I get to number 1 in the list and I go, oh, that's the one I'm going to read next. I'm not interested in from 10, 9, 8. I want the best book. I want to read that book. There have been some things that have come into place in this where I've sort of gone off that track, because sometimes reading these classics, these greats, they're very dense, and you sort of want to, I feel like you need to give them a bit of time, and you don't want to just burn through these, masterpieces and be like, I read 30 masterpieces this year. It's like, some people would have only had the privilege of having access to 5 of them in their lifetime, and they turn 80 and they die, and we could just read 30 of them in 1 year. We could read 100, because obviously we're at the most modern point of life, and we've got access to all the books behind us, which some people wouldn't have. But anyway, so I'm going to go through my top 10 and I will discuss some points. I want to go over what I like, what I don't like, what I've learnt, and how it's changed my outlook on life, if it has. We're going to do 2 honourable mentions. Okay, so honourable mention number 1 is The Girl Who Played with Fire. So this is my most recently finished book, and it's Lisbeth Salander, and it's Michael Blomqvist, and it's a completely new story that's separate from the ultimate favourite, most well known, which has more movies on it. But anyway, This is by Stieg Larsson, who I only learnt after reading these books actually passed away before these were published. So he wrote them all, put them into the publisher, and then he had a heart attack and died before it was actually published. Such a sad story and such a shame, because these books are very, very good. He was a very, very talented writer. I believe he was a journalist, and that could be completely wrong, but it could also not be wrong. So maybe he was a journalist. Maybe he was. Anyway, so this is honourable mention number 12. It just didn't quite make it into the top 10. It's a good book. It's a very good book. It's the second in the trilogy, and it's a good mystery thriller where you want to try and find out the pieces to the puzzle, what's occurred. We've got that very, very strong heroine who's Lisbeth Sander, who we all root for. It's a bit more on her this time than it was the first. The first was more on Michael Blomkvist. I like him a lot as a character. I'll talk more about him moving forward, but yes, that was honourable mention number 1. Honourable mention number 2, Emma by Jane Austen. Some people would shun me and spit in my face if they saw me on the street, if I said that this was not in the top 10 of the books I've read this year. I've read 12 books. This one's honourable mention number 2. I will say, though, that this book did surprise me with the fact that I enjoyed it as a whole. When I was reading it, so it's in the Victorian era in England or whatever. I don't even know. When is it? It was in that era where, like the same era as Pride and Prejudice. I think you would call it Victorian era. It was a while ago, all right? They had the big mansions, and it's all like the societies and the sort of the dramas and the ins and outs of relationships between people and this and that. Pride and Prejudice is very good. I enjoy Pride and Prejudice. I've only listened to that on audiobook, but I read this one. This was my second book I read this year. Actually, no, it was my third, but it was early on in the year. And it is a good book. It probably, if you talk about subject matter and genres, it probably wouldn't, align with myself exactly. I did have myself thinking towards the end, I'm like, why am I reading this story? Like, what is exactly the purpose of me reading what's occurring? Because it's sort of like stories about this person and that, but then at the very end, there is a good ending, and it does tie it up as a whole, which honestly, I would actually say this one is the same in that regard. This is probably a little bit more because it is a mystery. Mysteries tend to have that aspect where you wait to the end till everything's tied up in a bow, because it's sort of like a who did it, finding out this, what's going on with this one. This one also, the ending is a pretty prominent part in it. Ties things up, and it is a very good ending, and it does complete the novel well. All right, number 10. We're into the list. Yeah, it's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's number 1 from The Girl Who Played with Fire. So I loved this movie. I would always say this is one of my favourite movies. And then I had no intention to read it. I saw it in a bookstore. I actually saw it in an op shop. And because you see it there so often, I thought to myself, I'm like, I bloody well got to read this thing. So many people bought it and put it in an op shop that it must have some reason to it. It's a hugely, hugely successful book, hugely famous. There was an American movie. There's also a Swedish movie. It is a Swedish book. It's actually translated into English. This is a good book, and I enjoy it. Partly, there's aspects you wouldn't think about initially when you think about this book. Obviously, it's a thriller. It's a criminal. It's a crime. mystery. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You don't know. If you watch the movie, you do know. I knew because I've already watched the movie, but still, I read it. I really like Michael Blomkvist. I like him in both books. These days, I didn't go through the good and so the good, the characters. I also love the situations and the locations. I love how Blomkvist goes over to this cabin and he's living in this town separate from his life, and it makes you feel like you're separating yourself from your life and you're just living in this other entire situation, which is just your old life. Your regular life is on hold and you're just in this situation where, it's a completely new scenario and new things are occurring. I really like that part. The bad. The bad. I haven't thought about this. What are some bad things? Bad. Well, some bad. Blomkvist he sleeps around with a lot of women. I don't know. Is that, I don't know. Is that a bad thing? I didn't really think that part through. The specific answer for the good and the bad. I'm trying to have that framework for the questions, good, bad, how it changed my perspective. One thing, how it changed my perspective is nowadays when something trivial or little annoys me, like something in traffic, I think, what would Michael Blomkvist do? And I go, this guy would not care about all these little things. He's got a bigger goal at hand. He's like, his wavelength is higher. He's not listening to these lower vibration. He's got like a more important goal at hand. You wouldn't see him getting annoyed at someone in traffic and trying to be like, oh, you're a dickhead, and thinking about, oh, what if I did this in that situation? He would just carry on because he's got more important things to do. He's a journalist. He's in both of these situations. He's got high priority tasks to complete, and that's how it's changed my perspective on life. I think if a little thing happens, I go, what would Blomkvist do? He wouldn't care. He wouldn't care about these little irritations. But he's a good character, Michael Blomkvist. So, yeah. Okay. All right, so this actually has to go this way. So, number 9, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So, this is a fantasy book, and if you haven't heard about it, then definitely check it out, The Name of the Wind. I read this first 10 years ago. I've read this 3 times now. I just picked it up and thought, I haven't read it for a while, I'll read it again. Back when I first read this, this was the only book that existed. This was it. And The Wise Man's Fear, the second one. This was it. I was like, this is unbelievable. It's a fantasy, and it's very good. It's a very good fantasy. It's changed a lot. My perspective on it's changed a bit in the last 10 years. I read it twice 10 years ago, then I read it again now. It's not as picture perfect as I thought it was back then. It is very good. The good, the main character, I love the hero's tale. I love the journey he takes. I love his growth, and I love how you see him evolve and learn and make his way in the world. And he's someone you're really rooting for. It's very complex. The writing's beautiful. The world he's created is amazing. A lot of great things with this. The bad, I'm not a huge fan of the romance section now. Like, he's got a love interest, Denna. Some people would smite me for that. But it's okay, sure. But I don't know. It's like, bro, you're just running after a girl. Like, he just falls head over heels for this girl, and then all of a sudden that's his main interest. That's fine. I didn't care. I didn't have an issue with it the first time I read it. Now, I was a bit like, oh God, here we go again about the girl. He does write those parts fairly well, but if you're sort of like not as interested in the romance side of things, then that can be a little bit more encumbering, that part. But anyway, it's a good book. Just a side note, it's annoying because the third one hasn't come out for like 15 years. There's the first one, the second one. He was meant to release the third one. He hasn't released it. It's a little bit frustrating. So that's another bad thing about this book. Boom. We are on number 8. You read that? Can you read that? It's the Schmount of Flonty No, it's the Count of Monte Cristo. That's a big book. That's a big book. How many pages is that? It's like 1,000 pages. This is a good book. This is a classic that everyone says you should read. It's by Alexandre Dumas, who did The Three Musketeers. This is a very gripping story. The first section is fantastic. It really, really gets you involved. Then there's quite a drastic change in the story from about, I don't know if it's this point, but it's around this point. There's a definite beginning, and then there's a definite middle, and then the middle sort of just then continues on, and then the end. But there's a bit of a gap from the middle to in terms of timing. I actually stopped once the middle transitioned to the next stage in the book, which I then picked it up and finished it. Very, very good book. The good is the characters, the finding the beauty where you can, finding the beauty even while you are suffering. There is an element of revenge in this, a pretty strong element of revenge in this. Seeing the development in the main character is quite astonishing. And the bad, there's so many characters in this like middle to end section. It's like there's this group of family, and then this family, and that person's that person. Then there's like so many. It's a bit hard to keep up a little bit sometimes. How this changed my perspective on life. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I'll just say I really appreciate my relationships in my life now. I do value them really highly. And I try to have a new outlook on the beauty of my relationships. So let's put these here, ready? Because these are done. These are done. Here's the done pile. And that's in order. 10, 9, 8. What do we got here? Ooh, you saw it before I presented it. Wrong. Cancelled. Cancel the video. Cancel it. It's back. Pet Sematary. Stephen King. Have you heard of Mr. King? No. Obviously, we have heard of Stephen. He's written many books. I've got a big bunch of them over there. So yeah, this one I don't have in the in a vintage print. This one I bought new from the bookstore now. But let's talk about it. Pet Sematary. So I watched a gentleman on YouTube talking about his top 10 books, and this was high up in his top 10 of all time. So I'd give it a shot. It's pretty thin. It's pretty accessible in terms of reading a first Stephen King. But it is a really good book. So it's a fairly simple story compared to some of the other Stephen Kings I've read. But it is very good. It's well executed. It's got some moments in this book which, out of all the Stephen King I've read, and I've only read 3, this has some scenes and some moments in it that are more memorable than any other Stephen King books I've had. And it's the horror element to it that really gets to me, and just the way he makes you feel in these certain instances. But the story as a whole it's a very well thought of, very creative, very dark, very macabre sort of story. So the good is these mystical, magical horror elements, the allure of these enchanting things, the mystery behind them, and the lengths you're willing to go to for the ones you love if you lose them. There's some real emotional moments in this. If you've got kids, then you'll understand. Be careful if you're a bit sensitive towards that sort of stuff. But I actually have a child that's about the same age as the character in this. I it didn't tear my heart out as in like, oh my God. I read it and I was like, okay, you know. The bad, I'm not too sure about the bad on this one. How it changed my perspective on life? Don't know. Next. Okay. Don't you look at these yet. Okay, they're secret. What have we got here? You heard about this? The Schmort of the Flings. Oh. The Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship of the Ring. Huge fan of the movies. I had never read the books. I've only read this one. I haven't read the second two. I just read this one. What a beautiful book. I'll tell you what I like about this. I love the nature, the scenery, the locations, the adventure. Such an adventure book. I love the characters. I love the innocence, but I also love the cleverness and the evolution, and I love the warriors. And this is a good book. This is a fantasy book. This is by J.R.R. Tolkien. They might have made a movie about this. I don't know. Sorry, there were some technical difficulties. The Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Very good book. Very beautiful. Lots of travelling. Okay. Stephen King's back with The Stand. Oh no. Oh no. It's Stephen King, The Stand. It should be number 1. It's not. It's not even my number 1 Stephen King book. How dare you? It's a good book. I didn't read this version. This is my vintage one. This is probably bought, 20 years ago or something. I prefer this version. I didn't read it though. Very good book. This is one that I actually stopped. I stopped around, here. All right. Where were we? The Stand. Okay, my battery on my camera just cancelled itself. And now I'm plugged in. The Stand. Okay, I stopped this book in the beginning. I know. I'm disgusting. I stopped it. I went and read a different book. I was talking to my wife. I said, what do I do? What book should I read? Or should I go back and finish this? I went back and finished this. I'm glad I did. Okay? Why did I stop? Why did I stop? Oh my God, it's The Stand. It's the best Stephen King book ever. I stopped because I'm a terrible person. No, I stopped. I'll tell you why I stopped. I was reading it. The story is, I haven't been talking much about the stories of these, I don't think, or have I? The story is everyone dies and they're all dead. Literally, it's just one page and then they died, the end. But they just put it in so many, it's thick. Nah, I'm joking. That's a bad joke. It wasn't funny. This is a story of the end of the world as we know it. It's a story about what if COVID killed 99% of the people. But it's about an illness that kills 99% of the people. And then, and then what? That's sort of what I was thinking. In the beginning, I was sort of like, oh, what's going on? I get it. Everyone's dead. And now there's people that are alone. Some have met people, but most people are alone in groups of 2 or some in 1. And they're just sort of roaming around this apocalyptic world. So I was like, what's going to happen? I was like, it's just going to be people roaming around. But it isn't. So it does progress, and it gets quite good. It progresses in an enjoyable way. So the story does evolve. There's the beginning where things start to occur. Then there's sort of where everything's been accepted and most of the damage has been done. And then there's the survivors, the very few. It's about 1% that's remaining. Some of them are alone. Some of them have found some people, and they sort of are traveling through this world. Lots of people have died on the streets. There's car crashes and buildings are all abandoned because there's not many people, and they're sort of just traveling. But then things start to occur, and my whole point was, what's this story? It's just everyone's dead and they're just wandering. But there does become a progression as the story goes on. There's more people start to meet up with each other, sort of a community situation. I don't want to spoil it too much, but things do evolve. And there's that. It's actually that middle part which is my favourite part. Okay, quickly, the good, the characters, the community aspect, the appreciation of what we have now. If you're thinking about changing how it's changed my outlook on life, I try to appreciate what we have now a little bit more, because it could all be a lot worse if everyone had it, if 99% of people died with an illness. So I try to appreciate things a little bit more. The bad, this might be a little bit controversial. Not a huge fan of the bad guy. So the Dark Man, or Randall Flagg, as they call him. I'm not a huge fan. He's not terrible. He's not the worst thing that's ever been created, and he probably fits this story in the best way. But there does arise some questions where he can do these certain things, sort of fantastical, magical things, but it's just him that can do it. No one else. There's the good guy. Sorry, there's the bad guy, Randall Flagg, and then there's the good lady. Forgot her name. I read this a while ago. Sorry, I forgot her name. She's got some sort of magical elements to her, but not quite to the level of him. So I don't know. Sometimes I think of him and I go, oh, why has he got these sort of powers and stuff, and no one else has? But talking about good again, there is this sort of like Sixth Sense vibe, which not only, like, the bad guy has it. He's like magical, we'll say. He has magical powers. No one else really does, but like there is this sixth sense about the common folk, which is quite cool. Like there's characters here. There's a mute and deaf character. He's probably one of my favorite characters. The characters are really good in this. There's really good characters. The ending is quite good. Yeah, good. John Steinbeck, East of Eden. Does everyone just put this in their top 10 best books of all time and just say, oh yeah, I guess I better put it in there too? All right, it's a good book. I read half of it 10 years ago. I read all of it this time. Why did I stop? Because I'm a bad person. Why did I finish it? Because I'm trying not to be. John Steinbeck, famous for The Grapes of Wrath, Of Mice and Men, which I read in school, East of Eden, this is his sort of lesser, not as famous as Grapes of Wrath or Of Mice and Men, I would say, but it's probably more acclaimed. People say it's like his best book. This is a good book. A very masculine book, but there are very strong female characters in it. And it's a story back in the, God knows when. It was like in the farming days, like what, 1800s, early 1900s, I think. It's about like a family of a man and two boys, two sons, and then how they grow up. And it's about loss, and it's about abandonment, and it's about growing and relationships, and it's also, there's a lot about loneliness. There's some moments in here that are really emotional, and they're probably the most emotional of any books I've in all these that really got to me and impacted me and made me feel something, tender. So it's a really beautiful book. It really shows you one thing in terms of it changing my perspective on life is it's like, yes, we all die and we're all gonna just live for a short period of time, but it matters. It's like some of these characters, they pass away, but it's like they live on, and it's not even about like trying to live on the longest or just trying to shine the brightest, but it's like we matter. What we do matters. That's what this book was saying to me. It was saying, yeah, you might only, like, we're not all Joe Rogan. We're not all famous. We're not all Orlando Bloom. We're not all, Tom Cruise. But these guys aren't. They're not Tom Cruise. But like, they impact the people around them. And there's some really good characters in here. Like, there's Sam Hamilton. There's Adam, of course. There's the Lee. There's Lee. Lee's probably one of my favorites. He's a Chinese. He's sort of like a housekeeper for the main character. It's really, it goes into good and evil as well. It goes into conflict within you about having these traits and trying to tackle them and trying to overcome them. And it covers a lot of things, but it's just a good story. You know, it's a good story to read. Good one. That's number 4. Number 4. Probably should have been a bit higher, that one, but anyway. Yeah, actually, anyway. Number 3 is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I'd probably swap these, actually. I'd probably put East of Eden, so this could be 4. Let's say it's a tie, and we'll just say this one is 3. Dan Simmons, Hyperion. I bought this ages ago after I read Dune, which I love, by Frank Herbert. Very, very good book, Dune. That would be one of my favourites of all time. I stopped it. I read this much, I stopped. Do you know why? Because I'm a terrible person. I stopped it because... so I'll tell you the structure of this book. It's like there's like 7 pilgrims set out on a quest for the legendary time tombs on Hyperion, which is a planet, home to the Shrike, which is a part god and part killing machine. I'm reading from the back. So there's 7 people on this journey. So it starts off on the ship and they're all going. And, you know, that's just where it begins, and then, you know, blah, blah, blah. But what happens is essentially we hear 7 different stories. And it's sort of like you're reading 7 different books, kind of. Like, and what I mean by that is you have to, do you know when you read a book in the beginning, it's sort of like a bit hard to, like, all right, I've got to try and understand the situation, the characters, what's going on. And then, like, by the middle, you're sort of streaming through. By the end, you're like, I get this. I get what's going on. I know what the zone is. And the beginning's a little bit harder because you're sort of trying to come to terms with the context and the writing and the characters and the world. I feel like you have to start a book 7 times with this. You have to read 7 different books. So it can be a bit hard. So, like, you sort of lose the momentum of reading. You're like, oh, yeah, okay, I read that. And you read the first story and you go, wow, that's so good. That story's gone now. And we go to the next, so all 7 of them tell a story. We go to the next story, you have to start all again. Okay, this is a completely different story, completely different character. That character's not in it, it's a new situation, blah. And you got to read it, and then you finish it. And then the next story. Then the next story, then the next story, and the next story. And then we all sort of see. But, so I finished after the second story, because the second story it didn't quite capture me as much, and I was sort of like, oh, I don't know. I finished it though. They're all really good stories. The second one probably isn't the strongest. If I read it again, maybe it is the strongest. It's for Cassard. The first story is so good. They're all good. They're all really good. The second last story about the detective, the android detective, is so amazing. That's what makes this book, I think, I loved it so much. Especially because it's like quite near the end, so it stays in your memory. But it's so good. The world they create, this futuristic world where there's like these traveling through these like time ports and like the huge amount of like different planets that people can access, and like that second last story with the android and the lady, and it's like a crime, you know, it's like a crime thriller, like, you know, it's really good. Beautiful as well at the end. It's quite a beautiful book. It does take a little bit time to sort of like absorb. It's a little bit dense, but it's probably, you know, I'm probably just reading easy books, you could say. This is a really good book. Just in memory, it's really good. Particularly that end part, things started to roll along a bit. It is a bit hard. Each story you have to sort of like, you know, re-understand each story again, but towards the end you sort of get a good understanding of it, and the stories, I feel like towards the end they're really, really good. So yeah, this is a really good book. Really good book. That is number 3. Number 2, Stephen King. We're back, bitches. 11/22/63. So, you know, everyone says that their favourite Stephen King books are this and The Stand, and then it comes down to like It or Pet Sematary or Dead Zone or The Shining, or I'm probably missing some, but everyone pretty much says this and The Stand are the best Stephen King books, and Pet Sematary as well. And I read this and The Stand and Pet Sematary, my first 3 Stephen King books I've got. So is it only down from here? Like, is it only downhill from here? Did I make a mistake doing it that way? Maybe, but I'm learning. So this is a good story. The interesting thing about this, so obviously, as you can tell, 11/22/63, that's the date that John F. Kennedy got murdered. And in short, the story is about if you could go back in time and stop that murder, would you do it? There's time travel elements. There's also that aspect of like, ooh, stopping a terrible thing from occurring. So that's just generally there. But what I think makes this book stand out as such a good book is all the other things that Stephen King creates that aren't even necessarily connected in any real way. It's the story of all the people that he meets and the life he lives, the main character. When he goes back and he meets all these beautiful people, he becomes a teacher, he falls in love, and you know, this whole story about 11/22/63, it sort of dissipates a little bit and doesn't really. Stephen really writes this well, where you are invested, and it is a prime target. And there's also moments where the main character questions it, you know, this and that. But I'll tell you what, the other story, the relationships, particularly the romantic one. I said I wasn't a romantic sort of guy, like in the other book, but which was it, The Name of the Wind. But this one I liked, and it's beautiful. The ending. It's actually it's sad, and it's beautiful. This one really touched me, the end, you know. As a whole, you know, the book is, it's like if you finished here, it's like you should always rate a book. It's like, what's a book like at this point, but then what's a book like at that point? This one really changes a lot when you get to this point. It's a really beautiful, sad story, but a very, very good read. I highly recommend it. The journey, the good, the journey, the travelling, the characters, the beauty, the bad. Well, okay, what you could say with the bad is, I don't want to spoil it, but the results of the main 11/22/63, what occurs afterwards is, you could, you know, it's like, it was all sort of for nothing, which that probably did spoil it, but it doesn't. It's not all for nothing, but it's like, the way the end transits is it sort of counteracts certain things, and but it's good. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't like worry. It's not bad. It's well done. It's hard to tie up books, you know, where like you're doing all that sort of stuff anyway. So yeah, that's number 2. Number 1 is a book called Kobo. Please charge your e-reader. Okay, so I don't have the physical book for this. I chucked it at number 1. I had to do one. It could have been, you know, any of these, really. It's hard to, I'm not a decisive, like, this one is 9.5 out of 10. This one is 7.6 out of 10. I like all of them, really. I like most of the books. If I had to order them, this is sort of what I do. But I will say that Kobo, Please Charge Your E-Reader was fucking nuts. Like, it's like, where the fuck is the charger? And how the fuck do you just fucking wreck someone with this too long? Okay. I was going to charge it and show you the book. I don't have the physical book. I got it on Kobo. I was going to show you the actual cover of the book. The book is, and you might have heard this book from many other like TikTok videos or YouTube. It's Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Okay, so it's a Westerner. It's a long book. It's a very masculine book. It's about a lot of farmers. Fuck, I shouldn't say that. Sorry, they're not farmers. There's something. They're like fucking cattle ranchers or fucking something. I'll cut that part out. They're dudes in the wild, wild west. Oh, yeehaw! They're in the farmlands in Texas, on the plains. There's some retired sheriffs and outlaw. They're like they're like fucking pew 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 pew. They're like they're retired law enforcement in the wild wild west. You heard it. Nah, well they are. Okay, and then they have this sort of ranch, and they sort of just hang around there. Then they have an opportunity to come by a large amount of cattle, and they decide to go on a cattle run all the way to the north, which no one's ever brought cattle up there before. So what's good about this book? So beautiful characters. People always talk about, when you hear this book, they say the characters and the relationships between two, which is mainly Augustus McCrae and the other dude. I forgot his name. Cal. But those two dudes. It is a good it is really good. There's other characters as well. It's really, you get inside the head of like all these different people. They're all sort of at different years in their life and different stages, and you get their inner workings, and they're all there for a joint reason, and you get to know their inner workings, and the relationships are good, and there's like, you want to discover them, and you are discovering everyone as the journey goes on. And what I learned, what changed my outlook on life for this, or at least something that sort of changed my point of view in life for this, is Augustus McCrae. I really like him. He's very argumentative, and I started to realize that I'm a bit argumentative in life, and it's not a bad thing. It's not like you're an evil person just because you like a bit of back and forth. Like, you sort of want a bit of fire behind your words. And Augustus he'd always want to, like, he'd always be talking. He's a very vocal guy. I just like a bit of conflict in the back and forth, which Augustus, I go, well, he's like it. So, and he's not a bad guy. He's just, he just sort of likes a bit of, a bit of back and forth. I will tell you this. So in terms of memorable scenes, this book has the one out of all these that, come back to me. There's a certain period in this book where, I don't want to spoil it too much, where someone gets taken somewhere else, and then someone follows that somebody else to try and get that somebody else back. And I am like, oh my God, this is amazing. I cannot put this book down. I was just reading it all night long. I just couldn't stop it. I was like, this is nuts. Really, really cool. That part was amazing in the book. It was fantastic. There wasn't much like that particular instance in it. It didn't need it. I'm not saying it was lacking it, but it came in and whoa, were we amazed. And it was amazing. It was so cool, that part. I thought that was amazing. Beautiful characters, beautiful relationships. That particular moment was fantastic. And it is a beautiful, sad end as well. But that's a fantastic book. People say if you haven't read a Western, you should read that one, if it's your only one. And I agree. Well, there you go, guys. There's my top 10 books of the year, plus the 2 honourable mentions, and I've got another 13 more to read. So, see you later.